jobs would arrange students in a classroom based on their intelligence and academic performance rather than on their age. On our side of the government, we believe that this is good, and now we would like to advance to our status quo. We believe that in the status quo, people are judged by their age, which isn't very benefiting because age doesn't always align with wisdom and intelligence. A student's intelligence is most likely based on the environment they surround themselves in and inherent genetics, but not how old they are. What age might determine is experience, which feeds into knowledge in comparison to intelligence and academic performances, which we are focusing on right now, not in knowledge as a whole. And we also believe that on the status quo, students are actually stuck in a class which doesn't cater to their needs and interests. Students of a higher intelligence will thus have their potential wasted because they're not going to be given extra work or challenges that could have been utilized to further develop their talents or work ethics. Students of the lower intelligence, on the other hand, suffer from the unionization of other types of students because in the status quo, they're expected to learn the same pacing as everyone, which is bad for their academic and intelligence growth. Now, definition. Intelligent students, to us, are not only those who are only inherited by clever in nature, but also those who know and are willing to utilize a gift. And academic performance isn't just students who are smart in the classroom, because a performance is also determined by ambition and hard work. So even if a student is not is genetically smart, if they don't have the will, then their good performance will not be shown. On the other hand, students who don't have the gift to begin with will still be able to get a higher chance if they display a good level of hard work, ambition, and determination, which is just as useful as base intelligence, which means that on our side is exclusive to people who are naturally gifted. Now, the goal of this debate is to create the most effective classroom environment that is fulfilling to each student, which will give them the most effective studying method without them being held back or pushed beyond their limits. Now, the solution and mechanism is that to see the student's previous academic report and then let them study in the same environment for the amount of time to see how their academic report will turn out now, and compare the two reports and find students who are not only displaying good performances on the present, but also to see their development over time. So, we will base them not only on their final grades, but also on their advancement, similar on how SNM N picks students. And after we rank these students, we will then ask for their consent on whether they would not want to be placed in an advanced class or not, seeing as although we consider the result, we do not know of their mental state, so it's important to make sure they would want to be placed in a higher place. As for students who are supposed to be placed low, we will unanimously put them there because obviously they need extra help. Now, on our side of the debate, we recognize there are two main actors within this debate, students of the higher intelligence and students of the lower intelligence. Although at first, it might seem like our student side is only benefiting for the smarter students, we're actually also catering to the needs and interests of the students who are of a lower intelligence level, which we will show in our arguments. First of all, it is very likely that putting intelligent and ambitious students in the same classroom will give them an advantage. Now, I would like to explain the likelihood of my argument. They're generally faster than the mass general. We can see this behavior by how they usually submit their works and tasks faster, or how they can understand a concept by the first time a teacher explains it. On the opposition side of the government and on the House, they will stay in the status quo, in which they have to wait for the slower students. However, on our side of the House, they will not be held back as they're all on the same level of pacing, so they can finish their studies at a much faster range that they're actually comfortable with. And they also usually don't have a difficult time finishing the work that's handed to them, right? Which means that slightly increasing the difficulty of their work will not be harmful to them. On the status quo, this is not eligible because increasing the difficulty of the works, tasks, homeworks will stress out the less advanced students, which are already struggling to begin with. However, with them being placed on another place, these students will be able to receive more challenges that will be adjusted to the level of intelligence and hard work. And although we wouldn't want to generalize, it is important to understand that at least half of the students who struggle in academics are those who slack off in class or even cause troubles, provided that their presence is usually harmful or at least disbenefiting to the studying environment. With these types of students separated, there won't be any liability that will distract these ambitious students, so they can fully study and have the full attention of teachers without the teachers having to focus on handling these type of students. Now, The importance of their arguments is, first of all, if they finish their lessons faster, they can A, dig deeper into said subject. This is good because intelligent and hardworking students are generally very ambitious. So being able to learn more of a lesson without the burden of tests and scores will feed into their curiosity and make them a better students in the long term. Or B, they can advance to other subjects and keep on advancing and advancing until there's nothing left to study anymore. Which means they will be able to get their hand around a lesson that's not placed in the curriculum to begin with, which means they can study anything they want, which is effective. Because in the end, this means that they will have the time to study what is their collective choice instead of something that's forced onto them. If they're given talent, and lastly, if they're given challenges, we can develop their intelligence even further, giving them higher order thinking skill questions that the government has admitted to be necessary for the growth of the nation. It is true that these kind of questions can be given in normal classrooms, but they're not effective, seeing as less motivated students will be discouraged, while more intelligent students will see them as a challenge and be eager to advance the way they think and learn to process things, which makes them better students. And the second argument is that it is likely that putting students of lesser intelligence and motivation on the same classroom will give them the studying method that they need to get back on their feet. The likelihood of the argument is that they're generally slower than the mass general, right? However, in the status quo, they're forced to study in the same pacing of students that are smarter than them. However, on our side of the government, they will not be forced to do that because in the end, they can fully take their time to comprehend a lesson before moving on, which does not happen on the side of opposition, seeing as how they will be able to cater to the pacing of the mass general, finding an equilibrium instead of catering to the personal interest, which is important in academics. In the status quo, in the status quo, they will be given tasks that are generally difficult, right? Which might overwhelm them or even discourage them from studying even more because they will believe there's no purpose of them learning. Because they will believe they're too dumb to understand a concept, when in reality, they are not ready for those type of tasks, which means that they will be needed to give an easier task first before advancing to those tasks, which can only often happen on our side, so we will not disadvantage those who are of the higher intelligence. And on our side, they also won't be discouraged and intimidated by the intelligence of the smart students. When they see students that are 3 times smarter than them, they will think that no matter how hard they work, they wouldn't be able to reach such heights because they just don't have the gift. So they think it's better to not try at all, since in the end, they're not going to be as good as these talented students, right? And that is when we believe that kind of mindset is harmful, which is why we'll separate them. And D, the students of the lower intelligence are in reality not a burden. They need extra attention, and the school has the obligation to cater to those attention. And the importance of argument is that principally, it is not that they're unable to comprehend a lesson. It's just that they need more time, right? In our side of the debate, they will be given the time they need so they can actually fully comprehend and understand a lesson, which although wouldn't be fast, in the end, they will still understand them, which is better than the status quo, in which they're forced to move from one lesson to the other without actually understanding them, meaning that they won't study and learn anything in the first place. And even if they're not overwhelmed by hard subjects, they will be able to carry on. On the status quo, they won't understand something and they will believe they're dumb, thus losing the spirit. But we believe that this will not be happen because the type of their work is adjusted, because the people that they are surrounding with are adjusted to their intelligence, so there's nothing that's going to make them discouraged. And we believe that for these reasons, it is better to put these students like this. And for these reasons, we proudly propose